was excited to start working. I thought I'd wanted to be a doctor.
And then I started to hear something.
Is anybody there?
No one else saw it but me.
I'm holding on to him and I'm terrified and trembling.
And that completely freaked me out.
Fresh off her first year of college, teenager Marcy Pearsall is hired at the facility by her mom.
And the patient lounge upstairs. I'm just gonna go put my stuff away. I'll be right back.
My mother was the director of nursing, and she thought she had the perfect job for me, and that was to be a nurse's aide. I thought I'd wanted to be a doctor.
Now, don't forget, tomorrow you're gonna have to punch in too. Okay? And that's all there is to it.
I was excited to start working. I mean, I was 19 years old, and this was my first job.
But at night, the whole place takes on a different tone.
It was a lot of hard work, but I met some terrific people. Not only the people I worked with, but patients who require daily care with their washing, eating, clothing, etc. I grew to love these people.
But the perfect summer job takes on a dark twist when Marcy is assigned to work the night shift in a facility long believed by locals to be haunted. At night, the whole place takes on a different tone.
When I walked through those doors, it was an uncomfortable feeling. And there is a sense of a coldness and an aloneness. Just a sense of loneliness. There are times when you would hear a door shut, and when they shut, there's a vibration and there's an echo. I definitely felt uneasy.
It's an old place.
It's an old place, so I didn't think very much of that. But I thought, so that starts to set the stage for you go, oh, this is a little odd.
But a few nights later, those strange feelings come to a head.
I had just put the residents into bed. So this would have been probably about 10 o'clock in the evening. I heard footsteps. And there was not supposed to be anyone off of my floor. I heard the door slam.
And the 19-year-old is the only staff member in the wing.
What's your biggest concern here?
The safety of the residents was always a concern. A resident leaving the facility was always a fear. You wanted to keep people accounted for and safe. The door slam was on a stairwell that would go from the second floor down to the first floor. But it wasn't one that was used very often.
Marcy needs to know if it's just the creak of an old house or if she's dealing with someone that shouldn't be there.
I looked down the stairs, and no one was there. I thought, how weird, because I never heard a door open or close for anyone to go out. And that creeped me out.
But she feels that something is still very much in that room.
I felt an energy around me. I felt kind of a heaviness on my shoulders and around my neck. Like there was a presence hovering over me. It's like someone breathing on me. I just felt like I needed to push forward. There was no explanation. Someone went in there and didn't come back out. And I found myself wanting to get out of there as soon as possible.
A few nights later, Marcy starts having second thoughts about the dream job that she got through her mother.
The nurse wanted you to take these lab results to her.
There was the feeling of, what did you get me into? It was already bad enough that I was working all these night shifts, but now I'm beginning to wonder what else is going on here. I hear general noises such as, doors. I hear a cough. But you'd think, okay, people are sleeping, this is their home. But you would look out, and there was a set of lights. And at any given time during the night, the lights would start to flicker. Thinking, oh, there's something wrong, I would go up to the light switch and kind of flick them on and off, and they'd be fine.
It's hard to tell whether something is being done on purpose as a communication or whether it's something that's actually happening atmospherically because something has changed in the electric energy in the room.
And then they would flicker again.
Marcy, what did you see in that room?
At her new job, Marcy experiences bizarre events she can't explain.
There was a rocking chair, and it was rocking. I didn't hear footsteps, I didn't hear a voice. I felt like there was a presence. And as I looked at it, it just stopped. And that completely freaked me out.
This could be a situation of poltergeist activity, so either a spirit that's actually purposely moving the rocking chair or something else going on that we can't explain.
I think I was stunned. I think I was just kind of numb and questioning what it was. The overall effect that had was, what is going on here?
Experiencing a haunting that's escalating can be an extremely vulnerable place to be in because their world is shifting and changing and they can't understand why.
One thing is clear. Whatever is happening in the nursing home is only happening to Marcy.
No one else was getting spooked. No one else was getting scared. I was thinking, okay, what's next?
But the worst was yet to come.
Okay.
I was working the day shift on the floor where people require the most care. And this one resident, I remember her, lovely lady. And as I'm feeding her, I felt like a wisp of wind that made me look back. And I saw a little boy, and as quick as I saw him, he was gone. This is 8:30 in the morning, and there weren't visitors at that time. I was wondering who this little boy was. I was wondering where his parents were. And I also thought, who dressed him funny? It wasn't modern clothing. To me, it felt like another time.
Oftentimes people will report seeing them in period clothing. And what we found is that human spirits oftentimes manifest themselves at a time in their life when they were having the most fun, that they were really enjoying something.
You haven't seen a little boy running around here.
And they looked at me and went, no. And I said, I swear I saw a little boy peek in when I was feeding breakfast. And they went, there's no one here, Mars. Okay.
Later that day, Marcy learns that her patient has died and takes the news hard.
This is where the chill of all chills went through me, because I just felt a wisp of wind, and when I looked back, I saw the boy. I watched him run, but there was no sound.
So he ran full speed, but you heard nothing.
Heard nothing. I heard nothing.
Did you see a little boy run past here?
I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know what was real.
But later that week, all that would change.
I was working days again on the same floor, and I was in the room with a gentleman this time. And I felt a heaviness. I felt like there was someone else in there with us. The breeze came through the room,
During a haunting, what can be reported frequently is drops in temperature and breezes that can't be explained. And sometimes it can be something as simple as communication, but it can also be, at times, a sign of a negative entity.
I looked over my right shoulder. And it was the same boy. It was the same ball cap.
With one small exception. He turns invisible.
That, to me, was the confirmation I really saw a ghost. There was no going back after that.
That evening, for a second time in a week, Marcy's patient dies following a visitation from the mysterious boy.
I made the connection at that time that this little boy, for whatever reason, he was looking in at these two people, and they passed shortly after them.
Entities may actually be able to recognize or tell whether or not somebody is coming close to the end of their life. It's possible that this young boy may have been interested in giving Marcy more of his own history.
She goes looking for answers. She heads to the basement storage area, hoping to uncover the identity of the little boy ghost.
When a resident would die, families a lot of times would not pick up their belongings, and so they would be kept in that storage area. Every once in a while, you would feel the wind. There should have been no wind there.
Do you ever see anything a little out of place in that basement?
Yes. Something that chilled me to the core. I knew whatever this was not of this world.
Marcy Pearsall's summer job has included hauntings by two separate spirits. Carrying the unclaimed possessions of a recently deceased patient, Marcy reaches the storage room.
When residents come in, they come in with their suitcases that'll have their name on them, clothes that they're coming in that they're probably never going to wear again. Suitcase after suitcase after suitcase. The easy chairs, the rockers, pictures, paintings.
One particular artifact resonates. Marcy is drawn to a newspaper article from the 1950s.
In the 1950s in the US and Canada, there was a lot of trials that were done unauthorized on both polio and tuberculosis vaccines. Unfortunately, a lot of those people were children, and many passed away.
When I was told about this polio vaccine experiment and that there were possibly children who had passed, the first thing that did come into my mind was, wait a minute. Was that little boy? I remember coming across a couple of baseballs and a glove and wondering if that didn't have something to do with that little boy.
Could the spirits haunting this space have been unwilling or unknowing test subjects?
The idea that we will die a horrible death and get stuck here is something that we hear about quite frequently. We found that all of the entities that we've dealt with and encountered, all of these people have a reason for being here.
Not all people are aware, but there's a cemetery behind the facility. I think there is a lot of sadness that they were buried alone, that they may have died alone.
that realization is both sad and terrifying.
I knew this was a life-changing event. I knew from that moment on that I was changed. As far as what it changed for me about believing in the spirit world, it validated it completely. And every time I go past the facility now, I look at this great castle-like structure, and I think of how many people have both lived and died there. And I have no doubts that spirits exist. I have no doubts that whatever the veil they speak of, we can walk freely back and forth. And I believe the other side does.
Turn on. It's been another long evening, racing across the city, transporting emergency patients to the local hospital for veteran paramedic Betty Lawrence.
I was working as an EMT, both on emergency calls and on what's called transports. More calls come in the evening. There are more accidents with lighting and weather and that type of things.
With her shift done, she heads out to meet her boyfriend, who also works at the hospital as a security guard. Her boyfriend works at the building next door, what used to be the original hospital, which for years now has sat empty.
My boyfriend called me up and he said, "Come see me. I'm tired of being alone here."
But her boyfriend isn't quite done with his shift. He has one last round to make in the old empty building.
And I'm thinking, well, okay, I'll wait here for you. And he's like, "No, come with me." I heard it was haunted. And I thought, okay, I'm not gonna be alone. It'll be all right, I'll be with him. And we began to go in.
No, you really didn't.
Her boyfriend's main security issue is illegal trespassers.
He was looking for kids trying to break in and mess around and that type of thing. And that made me a little uneasy. That I felt like I was looking into a facility that all of a sudden just stopped functioning in the middle of the day.
Why is all the equipment still here?
It was like all the people just disintegrated. And that was disturbing about it.
I've never really thought about it before, but it's weird.
Abandoned hospitals are very attractive to spirits. There's so much death happens there that I do believe spirit energy just gets trapped there.
And some hospital staff believe this to be true.
My boyfriend told me that one of his coworkers recorded sounds in the OR, and when he played it back, he heard someone asking, "Help me, help me." And then I started to hear something.
Thinking that it's just her imagination, she keeps it to herself.
I'm trying to be brave and not act like I'm a big scaredy cat. But as we got further into the building, it got darker, and I became more spooked.
On this lower level, the strange sounds seem to be getting louder, at least for Betty.
And we got to this room, and I'll never forget the number. It was 4B.
What did you see in room 4B, Betty?
The chair moving about a foot forward.
It moved. It was facing the other direction.
I think you're just seeing things.
And of course, he's looking at me like, okay, she's crazy.
Stay close, come on.
I kept telling myself it was a trick of the light. It was the way the light was moving.
As they reach the old operating room in the basement, they're halfway through her boyfriend's round and the furthest point to the exit door.
And we started to move forward into the first operating theater. That scared me, just the appearance of it. They had left the operating table. There were trays that looked like they would have had equipment on them. It was like walking into a cave because there was no outside light of any kind. And the darkness started to be oppressive. The room was cold, like the air conditioning was turned up as high as it could go.
And suddenly, the sound of a little girl crying.
Can you hear that?
It seemed to be all around us. It was kind of like it came from the very walls of the building itself. I'm thinking there's somebody in the room, some flesh and blood person in the room.
But whatever is in that room is neither flesh nor blood. Betty and her boyfriend's patrol of a closed hospital wing leads to a terrifying discovery.
Everywhere I turn, I hear this little girl crying.
Was it loud, hysterical?
It was a high-pitched cry. Little girls, when they get scared, they'll do this little quiet, sobby voice, and that's what it sounded like to me.
Can you hear that?
It was almost desperate, as if it was a child that had been alone for a long time. Like someone who had lost something.
Hello? Hello? Is anybody there?
Betty realizes that she's dealing with something that cannot be found.
It was terrifying for me in that my mind started to go to what had happened here.
Come on. Where is she?
Were the very walls themselves doing the crying noise? was getting very frightened. The hair on my neck was standing up, my arms, it was cold. We searched all of the OR rooms. Normally, if someone's talking or making a noise, you can find them, you know, it gets louder. And that never happened.
I can't
Then-
leave her here.
Something they would never forget.
I was terrified. And none of my training prepared me to deal with things that couldn't be rationally explained or dealt with.
As they race for the exit, Betty feels an invisible hand. Come on, let's pulling her back.
Whatever was in there, it wanted to keep me there.
Come on! Come on!
I know things existed, but it wasn't like I went out and sought them out to experiencing them.
On their way out, as they pass room 4B, they hear the girl clearly inside.
Turn on, turn on!
She sounded so mournful, so lost.
Turn on, turn on!
Like she was just
Turn on!
desperate for help. And all of a sudden, scared me to death.
Betty and her boyfriend are under attack by an entity who's out for blood.
You right?
Yes. Yes.
In this particular case, you're dealing with a child spirit that seems to be actually kind of negative. So the actions of this child spirit suggest it's of evil intent.
Hello?
Her boyfriend decides to check it out.
Have to go now.
He figured that there were pranksters, that there were teenagers in the room and they thought they were gonna pull a prank on us.
So he marches into the room. What did you do?
I was torn because I didn't want to go into that room. And at the same hand, I didn't want to be in the hallway by myself either. There was nothing out of the ordinary inside. The room was empty.
Let's go, let's go.
I'm holding on to him and I'm terrified and trembling.
It is possible that this child spirit they're hearing is someone who passed away there. It's also possible this child spirit is blaming the two of them for her own death.
I just wanted to get out of the building.
Once outside, they can finally breathe a massive sigh of relief and take stock.
Having lived through that, it made me a believer that such things existed. Before, I would have been looking for the scientific explanation, and if someone would have told me the story that I just told, I wouldn't have believed them. To this day, the sound of her voice still haunts me.
In a community hospital in New York's Hudson Valley, veteran ER nurse supervisor Sandra Kenna has no doubt that spirits walk amongst us.
I've always believed in the paranormal. The only time I really have been scared by spirits was at one of the hospitals where I worked.
Especially one particular evening on Hallows Eve.
I'm sitting at the nurse's station, and I saw the call bell go off. I began walking down the hallway toward the patient's room.
That's when Sandra sees something she cannot explain.
She was dressed what appeared to be an old nurse's white uniform.
One of the debates in the paranormal world is, why do we see apparitions one way and then sometimes another? It's theorized that people may not be able to see completely into the frequency in which they're actually existing.
I'm concerned because I know it's none of my coworkers, because none of us wear old-fashioned white uniforms anymore.
When she disappears into the patient's room, Sandra starts to panic.
My job as a nurse is to take care of the patients and keep them safe, no matter what.
Excuse me, excuse me.
So you enter the room, and then what happens?
And there's no one there. I no longer see this white shadow or this other person in the room.
Anything else?
Yes. And found that the poor man had passed away. And it was rather scary and terrifying. That's when I heard the whispering. You could not make out what actually was being said, and it sounded like a feeble old woman. I am the only one that ever heard these whispers, as far as I know.
But she cannot find where the sounds are coming from.
It was rather scary to see the nurse not knowing who it was. Could have been maybe a stranger or someone off the street that shouldn't be in the room or shouldn't have access to the hospital. It kind of scared me and kind of was freaking me out because no one else saw it but me.
Sandra witnesses what she thinks
Excuse me, excuse me.
is a harbinger of death.
It was very unnerving to see this woman or this shadow go into a patient's room. It caused a lot of anxiety because the patient passed away.
But over the course of the next few months, a dark, terrifying pattern emerges.
I learned over the course of time when this white nurse went into one of the patient's rooms, a few minutes later, the patient passed away. After seeing her many times in that same hallway, I actually began to call this person an angel of death. As an old nurse, maybe she had taken care of only hospice or palliative care end-of-life patients in the past. And now she was doing it for all of eternity on the same floor. It was her calling in life and her continual calling in death.
My opinion about this particular incident with the nurse is that she absolutely knew where she was, knew what she was doing, and was there to assist somebody in a really hard time.
But soon, Sandra is shifted to another floor of the hospital.
Not long after, I had left the medical floor to work somewhere else.
Where she no longer encounters the angel of death.
I was glad to leave that old shadow nurse behind on the medical floor.
But Sandra is confronted by something even more unsettling than the angel of death.
But I felt like somebody was watching me.
Like a presence?
Like a presence, yes, like a presence.
The unknown can be a really disturbing place for people. Paranormal experiences can make people feel very isolated. And when we get a situation where somebody's working alone, then it becomes even more amplified.
I felt very afraid. I could feel like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It appeared to be like a tall, dark, black shadow following me. It terrified me.
She considers calling for help. But she senses that this is a spirit that she must face on her own.
Did you see anything after that?
Yes.
Too terrified to turn around, she improvises. This time, the black shadow takes on a more human shape.
It was a tall, black figure dressed in a long, black trench coat with a black fedora-type hat.
Sandra is shocked to see a familiar face.
It took me by surprise, more or less. I feel as though it was my father. My dad, when he was alive, always wore this long black trench coat, and he always wore a fedora-type hat.
Human spirits tend to really be looking for the comfort of their loved ones. So the idea that maybe her father didn't show himself right away might actually be an indicator of the fact that he may have not been too sure how to approach her.
I had always been very close with my dad. He was everything to me. And I was his, what he called his little princess.
Sandra is suddenly overcome with emotions.
I believe that the shadow is my father following me and watching over me and guiding me and helping me and keeping me safe.
Over the next few weeks, Sandra is comforted by the feeling of her father's presence nearby.
One nurse in particular said to me one night, "Sandy, who is that tall man following you down the hall?" And I turned to her and I said, "That's just my dad, don't worry."
Within weeks, Sandra has interacted with two very different spirits.
She saw this nurse entity in the hospital, and not too long later saw the apparition of her father. Sometimes when we get into that state of expectation and that state of allowing, we end up seeing more things than we would normally.
Where the white shadow figure was more like the bearer of bad news or the bearer of death. And this shadow figure was my father, guiding me and keeping me safe.
Is he standing behind you right now?
Right now, no, there is no one standing beside me right now.
And cut.